All right, let's go. It's Tuesday night in East Lansing. Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com. I'm going to talk Michigan State football. Difficult loss on Saturday. You guys all know that. A lot of you were there. Fans have been showing up good this year, packing the stadium on the night games. The first two games of the season. Pretty good crowd against Arizona State. Also on Saturday, you saw what happened. Michigan State choked it away in a lot of ways. They're blaming themselves in a lot of ways. Defense was good for about 58 minutes. Offense moved the ball, didn't punch it in. We'll be talking about all those things tonight, taking some questions on the YouTube channel at SpartanMag.com. A few minutes ago, actually a few hours ago, Michigan State Spartan fans on SpartanMag.com, subscribers, maggers as they're called worldwide, I asked them to contribute some questions over the Underground Bunker message board, which is the church of what's happening now in Michigan State sports. It's where we talk about Michigan State, good and bad, hash it all out. Asked for questions coming out of Saturday's game, looking forward to the rest of the season as Michigan State hits the quarter pole of the season. And as a matter of fact, I don't have my water, but let's go to the questions. First question from the Underground Bunker, then we'll get into some of your questions over at the YouTube channel. MSU Analyst, that's his name, from Atlanta, Georgia. He says it's 96 degrees there. Good luck with that. I guess that's good during the rest of the year. 96 is good. I can handle 96. He says, with the Jarvis injury news, that's Jarvis, Michigan State's offensive guard and left tackle, who was lost for 6 weeks. Mark D'Antonio told us today at the press conference, got rolled up from behind, was pointing to his knee a little bit. Similar injury that took out Tupe Peko back in maybe in 2000, I would say. Yeah, because Peko was a junior college transfer in 1999, Nick Saban's last year. Then in 2000, he was playing center, I think. Got rolled up, missed a good portion of that season. Michigan State didn't make a bowl game that year. Jarvis out for about 6 weeks, D'Antonio says. MSU Analyst asks me, what are your thoughts on the offensive line and its ability to play winning football in the matchups coming up against the defensive lines and front sevens of Northwestern, Ohio State, Wisconsin, and Penn State in the coming 6 weeks? Great question, MSU Analyst, and that is probably the key question of the season right now. Michigan State moving Tyler Higby over to left tackle, listed as the first string left tackle today. When Jarvis was injured against Arizona State, they moved Higby to left tackle. Now, Higby had struggled at guard earlier in the game against an Arizona State defensive front. We talked about this on the VCast over at SpartanMag.com, which is on now. You can check that out after this, subscribers. Conan Dyke and I were over at football practice doing interviews after football practice. He and I talked about this on the VCast. Arizona State's defensive front, that 30 front, and we talked about it in the pre-snap read. Not only is it a 30 front, but it's not really a standard 30 front on most plays with a standard nose guard. They did more of that against Michigan State, less of it in the first two games, less of a standard two-gapping 30 front than Tulsa was, but they did some of that. What made them different and unique and problematic is that 30 front did a lot of stunting. And I don't see every team in the country every week, but we certainly look closely at Michigan State's opponents. And as long as I've been doing this, 15 or 20 years, I don't remember seeing a 30 front stunt as much as they did. It was another knuckleball. I said in the pre-snap read that was something that was an uncommon characteristic about Arizona State's defensive front. And although they were not as talented in the defensive front as they were last year, that was problematic. I thought it could be problematic. I didn't predict that it would be. But when you go back and look at Michigan State's positive run plays, Arizona State was not stunting. On the plays in which Michigan State gained a yard or 2 yards or less, no gain or loss of one, every time they were stunting. When they stunted, they stopped the run. Hard to simulate in practice. Michigan State tried to simulate it, but even with that simulation, the offensive line still had some problems with it. Offensive line did okay against the standard 30. Michigan State rushed for 115 yards. Not enough to win. Not enough to move the ball in the 4-minute drill at the end of the game. But for Michigan State's lone touchdown drive, their lone red zone conversion, last two plays were via the run. 5 yards Eli Collins, 9 yards Eli Collins. The 5-yarder, Lewerke did a real good job coming up at the line of scrimmage, calling an audible for that run play. And on the second one, good blocking from both tight ends, Seibert and Dotson. Dotson had his best game as a blocker in this game. He's coming along. Other parts of the offense needs to come along too. So the offensive line in general, Higby struggled at guard, especially when, now he didn't start at guard. He came in at right guard for Carrick because they're revolving the door there a little bit. And as I mentioned in the VCast, not to pile on Higby at all. Good kid, long way from home, giving it his all. Has played some good football for Michigan State over the years. Has had some tough moments, trying to battle through it. He's still working at it, and he's valuable. They need him. He was looking like he was shaping into becoming a good utility backup offensive guard who could also play some tackle if necessary. Played guard, got caught on a couple of those stunts. Remember Michigan State's play at the goal line when they were almost stopped for a safety? That was Higby kind of getting caught on one of those stunts. It got turnstile a little bit, penetration, nearly a safety. And also the play when Jarvis got hurt, same thing. Stunt, and he's taking on the defensive end. Thought he had this guy. This guy sets a pick for that guy, and he has a shoulder on him. And got inside on a pass rush, rolled up Higby from behind. That's what caused the injury. So Higby was kind of struggling there a little bit with the stunting that was going on. Had to move to left tackle because of injury. And going through the rest of the game, I didn't necessarily zone in on him particularly, but I was watching for negative plays and positive plays. And I never saw a negative play at left tackle the rest of the game while he was in there. So I think he played pretty clean at left tackle. He started there before, kind of lost the job last year, but he's not a guy that's going to go out there and, wet his pants a little bit on the deal. He can handle the situation. He's in terms of being ready for the situation. Now, physically, he's got to take care of it. I didn't mark him with any negative plays. I'm just an amateur checking it out. But D'Antonio said at the press conference today that he indicated that the feedback that he received from coaches, meaning Jim Bowman and others, is that Higby did pretty solidly in an emergency role at left tackle. So he's there long term. We shall see. The rest of it, left guard, Campbell got hurt, looked pretty serious, came back, bless his heart, doing his best. Solid against Western Michigan, up and down a little bit in this game, but they need him. Matt Allen, a crucial holding call hurt them. I'm not sure D'Antonio agreed with that call. Kind of stumbled coming out on snap and pull on a kind of an escort pass protection situation. He got around him, but you see holding on. He held on that one. Otherwise, Allen doing pretty good, doing functional. Right guard, Carrick, functional. I don't see a lot of negative plays from him. Right tackle, Reed, still a mixed bag, still a little hot and cold there. So, how good can that offensive line be? Not very good in the first game, better in the second game. This game, a little bit of a mixed bag. All things considered, not bad considering they lost 2 starters to injury, 1 for the whole game, 1 for part of the game. How can they do going forward? That's what MSU analyst wants to know. This weekend against Northwestern, Gaziano's a defensive end, and he's good, and he's hard to block, and he'll be matching up directly on a lot of plays with Higby. They can fix it that way. At the outset of the UNLV game, Gaziano was on the other side, but they can put him against Higby. So that's a handful. Gaziano's second team All Big Ten last year in a conference, the Big Ten, with a lot of good defensive ends. And Michigan State's going to see a bunch of them. Well, Higby sees one every day in practice, and Kenny Willekes in a few weeks against Ohio State. Chase Young will be there, real deal. I mean, Ohio State last year was the year to catch them napping a little bit because their defense was, the quality control was not there. We'll get to quality control in a minute on Michigan State matters, but Ohio State, not really a quality control and problems on defense this year. Chase Young looking good, and that's going to be a problem. Penn State with Gross Matos, a defensive end, he's a good one. So left tackle, not a very happy place to be in the Big Ten. You'll get challenged, and Michigan State needs Higby to come of age, solidify that left tackle spot. Devontae Dobbs, the prize freshman from Belleville, one of the top recruits in the state of Michigan last year. Played a little bit in that Western Michigan game, and at that time D'Antonio said, hey, we still might redshirt him. They're going to look at maybe playing him 4 games, then redshirting him, or 8 or 9 to go full go. They didn't want to play 5 and blow his redshirt on 5 games. They were still talking redshirt after the Western Michigan game, and they were on schedule for that. But now Devontae Dobbs has to get ready over there at left tackle. They're going to need him in case Higby falters. They've got Nick Samac, true freshman. He played left tackle in the spring. Looked like a freshman, but he's coming along okay. If Higby falters, somebody's got to get in there. Cole Chewins, We went over this in the VCast, so I'm kind of repeating this, but it is the news of the day with Jarvis being out. Cole Chewins, you keep hearing the same thing with him, getting close. I would imagine he's going to come back at some point and give it a go. They don't want to do it too early. Maybe he'll come back now that it's Big Ten time. They're keeping that quiet. D'Antonio started to say something about Chewins, then cut himself off. A.J. Arcuri came back, played in the Western Michigan game, tweaked that ankle in that game. Not available this week. If he hadn't played at the end of that game at mop-up duty, that was a tough decision. Mop-up duty. Do you play him and give him some experience, because that's a guy that only had 22 snaps coming into the season, or do you keep him on the shelf a little bit longer and give that ankle a little bit more time to heal? They chose the former, put him on the field for some experience, tweaked it, then he misses another week, and maybe not available at this time either. I've got to get this water over here. I apologize. I'm glad I did it without knocking everything off. Kind of surprised myself on that. All right, here we go. Question number 2 from TMC. Microphone Master TMC, 79 from Parts Unknown. Fellas and ladies, you got to tell me when you post on the Underground Bunker message board for questions for the SpartanMag Live VCast podcast. It's not a VCast, it's a podcast. It's a chat podcast. Got to say where you're from. We want to add that in there. TMC for Parts Unknown says, is Cole Haan on scholarship? Did Evan Morris overtake him for kickoff specialist job? Sure, it certainly looks that way. Cole Haan did come to Michigan State out of the state of Iowa as a scholarship kickoff specialist. He's lost that job. Is he still on scholarship? As far as I know, he is. And then TMC wants to know, so if he's not on scholarship, can that scholarship be allocated to get an extra offensive tackle in this upcoming class? Good questions, and that's one of the questions that a lot of people are wondering about Michigan State football recruiting. If they get somebody who loses a job, he's not in the playing group, a lot of other programs will push someone out so that they can use that scholarship for other classes. Michigan State historically has not done that, and they've been caught in situations where they don't have a lot of scholarship room, end up getting a recruiting class of maybe 18 or 19 players, whereas if they ran people off like Michigan or Alabama, they would run 6 people off and sign 6 more players, get a full class of 25 over the course of 4 or 5 years. It's like adding another complete recruiting class to your roster. That's the way it's done in some places from an ethical standpoint. D'Antonio's never done it that way. It bears watching to see if they change on that. But Cole Haan, if he doesn't have this job, he may want to go somewhere else where he can get some playing time as a kickoff specialist and maybe a place kicker. But as of right now, as far as I know, he's still on scholarship. Let me see if I'm going to check the YouTube channel here in a second to see what kind of questions are going on. Appreciate everybody checking us out. Looking over here at the chat. I assume it's working. It's not working. The chat's working, but the rest of it, we got an error going on. Hopefully it's okay for the rest of y'all. But let me check these questions. Rob South, first one to bat again. He's our leadoff hitter. He says, can fans please calm down? And can we just get one running back as a head guy? I think the one running back is Eli Collins. He's earned it. He's looked better. D'Antonio kind of said as much today, but your question is warranted because on 4th and 1, the most crucial short yardage situation of the game against Arizona State, they ran Connor Hayward, and he was stopped for a loss. It was the first drive of the second half. Expensive turnover on downs for that one. Connor Hayward, it was an inside zone. Earlier in the game, Michigan State converted a 4th and short on a quarterback sneak. This time they went inside zone lead with a fullback leading Rosenthal through the hole. I think it was pretty much 8 blocking 8 in the box. Might have been a 9th because Rosenthal took an edge defender, tight end blocked down. Should that tight end have comboed out to the linebacker who filled the gap? I don't know. So Hayward ends up in the hole one-on-one with someone from the back 7 coming in unblocked. And Hayward didn't beat him for the extra yardage. Could he have cut and gone into the pile? Could have. There was not a lot of room there. Not a great push there. Would he have been stopped there? Possibly so. Eli Collins has better jump cut quickness, better vision. And in terms of blocking tackles, seems to me just as good in terms of breaking tackles. Seems to me Eli Collins is just as good breaking tackles as Hayward. So 4th and 1, went with Hayward. I'm sure they'd like to have that one back. I'm not sure it was blocked to get that yard anyway. In the future, I would imagine that's going to be Collins or Ladarius Jefferson. We saw Jefferson in short yardage against, was it Western Michigan or Tulsa, one of those games? Must have been Western Michigan. And he was okay with that. And they brought him back in for a play or two. They ran a screen to him because remember he had a real nice screen catch and run in the opener against Tulsa. Ran a screen pass to him, a little swing pass to him in this game, but he dropped it. Ladarius Jefferson did. You're right. He says, can we just get one running back as a head guy? The head guy is Eli Collins. The competition is who's going to be number 2. Anthony Williams showed a little bit of spark. 2 carries, 9 yards, I think it was. So Anthony Williams going back home to the Chicago area. Could he get more time this weekend? Possibly. D'Antonio said today they're just going to continue to watch practice and evaluate it that way. I don't think he wants to throw Connor Hayward and some of these other people under the bus because, as he said, they've all played some pretty good football for Michigan State in the past, and they want to make use of them. We talked about it last week in terms of using Hayward in some of the personnel packages that can potentially put the defense in a bind as to whether they want to go nickel or standard, because if you go standard, he can split out and you can go empty and create some mismatches in space against linebackers. But got to catch the ball when that happens. Anthony Williams, gain of 4, had 2 carries, I think. Gain of 4 on an inside zone. Matt Allen and Luke Campbell did an okay job on that one, although Campbell didn't quite sustain his block on that one. The next play, very next play, gain of 5, outside zone to the left, showed some quickness to Anthony Williams. A good zone block. Good block by Matt Dotson on that one, and also Rosenthal at fullback. That one was under center, offset I formation. They did that maybe 4 or 5 times in the game. One time with Anthony Williams right there, outside zone, gain of 5. So Michigan State, with some of the old still baked into that situation. Thanks to Rob South for that question. Old Tuck is back. Good old Tuck. He says, in your opinion, what has been the reason for consistent decline in offensive production over the past 5 years? A number of reasons. Number 1 right now, wide receiver talent. We talked about this in the VCast also. An offensive line. I mean, you look at what happened in 2014, 2015, had Jack Conklin, Jack Allen, a couple of NFL offensive linemen. Does Michigan State have any NFL offensive linemen right now? I'd say no. And back then, Michigan State had at times 4 NFL wide receivers. When you talk about Mumphrey, Benny Fowler, Tony Lippett, I might be forgetting one. Any NFL wide receivers on the roster right now? I would say no. Darrell Stewart's a good player. I don't think he's an NFL guy, good slot guy, CFL type of guy. First place in the East, maybe. But NFL, I don't know. So that lack of talent at wide receiver. They got pretty good wide receivers, but we're starting to see what happens when you've got non-NFL talent on the offensive line, non-NFL talent at wide receiver. Michigan State tried to go deep 3 times in this game. One time to Darrell Stewart, and I think Lewerke kind of was too north and south on that. It was a play fake, the safety bit. Could he have let him and thrown him open a little bit to the inside? Possibly. But Darrell Stewart, see, here's the problem. Darrell Stewart's playing really well, doing a lot of great things. Gosh, he's probably playing 80% of the snaps. I mean, that's a ton of snaps. And then you're going against Arizona State with good talent at the corner positions, and they were mixing in some off man-to-man. So now Darrell Stewart, who's got good speed but not like electric gears, you're asking Darrell Stewart on a deep shot to get open against off man-to-man and just drag race him. Darrell Stewart's got speed, but not as fast as others that they've had, and he's not 6'2", 6'3" like others that they've had. And you're already featuring him in some of these other things, and he's on the field all the time, including special teams. And then you're asking him to try to beat those corners on a drag race. He kind of had some leverage to the inside because that safety bit. Lewerke down the chute a little too much. Maybe could have thrown him open. I'm not sure. The other 2 times, one was Cody White, and he was pressed, and he didn't get off press real well. Looking to go deep, Michigan State was, and looking, sack, because he didn't get open. Cody White, real good as a freshman. Has he continued to take it up since then? We've seen some Some mental mistakes from him this year. He's got to tighten it up. There are loose screws on this team. Cody White is one that they need to tighten those up, be more solvent, because there's not a lot of other wide receivers to play. We're not seeing Luis Nelson. I'm not sure why. We haven't seen Cam Chambers hardly at all. I'd have to look at the dress list to see if he dressed. I got one right over there. I'm not going to go get it, though, because I'm on a tether. Not seeing Cam Chambers at all. So they look to go deep 3 times, one time through a deep incompletion. Other times sack, other time not open, scramble, no gain. Point is, twice they didn't get open when they looked to go deep. It was like 1st and 10 between the 40s, between the 40-yard lines, good time to go deep, and the wide receivers didn't get open. Now, in the old days, if they were worried about Benny Fowler, you could start picking on Keith Mumphrey or his guy. You could go to other guys with talent. Right now, Cody White, need more out of him. And he had a real nice play on that one to set up that 4th and 1. Took a tough shot, took a hard hit, borderline late hit along the sideline, stretching out, trying to get that first down. And if this game had been played in, well, it was played in East Lansing, but in some ways it was played in Tempe. Didn't give him the spot on that one, didn't pick up 4th down, took a hard shot, helmet, spear. They used to call it spearing back in the old days. Lead with your helmet, now they call it targeting. It's always been illegal. They used to call it spearing. I've not heard spearing in 20 years. Hit to the shoulder. That could have been a flag. Instead, 4th and 1, got stopped. Took that shot on his punt return. Real nice punt return down to inside the 35-yard line. Michigan State down 3-0. Flag came from, what was that guy's name? Side judge from about 40 yards away. Oh, yeah, I'm going to say his name. Little. Anthony Little. I saw him throw it. He threw it as far and as hard as a referee can throw a flag from way on the other side. And the play was going that way, and it was from, if he had a crossbow with that thing, it might have been more effective. Throws the flag right as it was breaking out. So Cody White with a good punt return there. And a dude from Arizona State loads up and hits Cody White late. Hits his other arm, and he goes off. Could have been a late hit. Late hits were illegal for Michigan State. They were legal for Arizona State. I'm sorry, am I going to go there? Yes, I'm going to go there. All right. I've seen bad officiating in my day. I've seen bad officiating, and I've seen suspicious officiating. And that was suspicious officiating. That's all I'm going to say. Until maybe in 5 minutes if I start going again. But, so anyway, Cody White, I don't want to rip on him too much. He's out there taking shots for the team, doing the best he can. He's got to make sure he's on the line of scrimmage. 7th man on the line of scrimmage. I don't know if it was him or Dotson when Michigan State blew their first time out of the second half. Talked about this in the VCast also. VCast after the game was trying to think about Michigan State's blown timeout. I asked Lewerke about it. He didn't remember. I went back over and found it. Michigan State, of course, blew 2 timeouts at the end. You all know about that on defense. Why'd they only have 2 timeouts left? They blew one earlier in the half. Very un-D'Antonio-like to blow a tight end on offense. A lot of times, quarterback doesn't like what he sees, calls timeout. D'Antonio doesn't play that. Run the play, we'll run the play. He wants to save him for defense for the situation that you saw. Michigan State blew a timeout. They blew a timeout because they came up to the ball, ran the play. Michigan State called timeout just before the play went because Michigan State only had 6 on the line of scrimmage. Dotson came in motion, stopped as an H-back, H-tight end, and Cody White was off the line of scrimmage as a flanker. They only had 6. One of those 2 guys was supposed to be on the line of scrimmage, either Dotson or White. I'm not sure which. Loose ends. Quality control. We're going to get to that in a moment. But if that's Cody White, he had one other penalty in that game. We talked about this also, but these are important points. This is where you lose games. You lose that timeout in the third quarter, it might not seem like a big deal. That's the timeout you needed to avoid the 12 men on the field penalty. Using a timeout on your first or second drive in the third quarter can cost you a game, or it can be one of the drops in the bucket that leads to losing the game. And this team is not good enough to endure those type of mistakes and win. So the big question right now is, what is Michigan State? Are they any good? Are they this bad? They're not this bad. They're not 7 points bad on offense against a pretty good defense. Maybe against a really good defense like Ohio State, maybe Wisconsin. We'll have to wait and see. But I don't think any differently in Michigan State right now than I did 5 days ago. Very good defense, an offense that's coming along. Not good enough to have those kind of penalties, agree with them or not. Not good enough to lose the turnover margin by 1. Not good enough to miss 3 field goals. You do those things, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. This team, I've been talking about it, comparing it to some of the Kirk Cousins teams, the one Brian Hoyer team, some of the other teams. They've had some other teams that weren't great. Some of those teams did not have great defenses, but they didn't make a lot of mistakes. They didn't beat themselves. They go out on Saturday and win. Go out on Saturday, find a way to win. Then they win another one. Might lose one, then win another one. And then by the end of the year with 9 or 10 wins. 10 wins happen a few times with teams that weren't that good. Those teams did not beat themselves. Those teams, trestle ball, attention to detail, tight screws, not beating themselves, what the Iowa Hawkeyes are doing right now. Don't beat yourself, they'll have a hard time doing it too. You don't beat yourself, they'll have a damn hard time doing it with Michigan State's defense. That's still what Michigan State is. They don't beat themselves, they're going to be hard to beat. They beat themselves, miss field goals, have a wide receiver run a route not quite perfectly in the red zone, got to kick a field goal and miss it. Delay a game penalty on a field goal when you have a timeout. You do those things, you just leave an opponent in there. You leave a beaten opponent in a game. Leave them in the game. Leave them in the game. Then Michigan State can lose. Take care of those things, and Michigan State can beat anybody on the schedule except maybe Ohio State. I'm not saying that they're going to hit. They're all long putts, some of those games. I'm not going to say that they're going to make every one of those long putts, but they can beat all those teams if they get their crap together. That's where D'Antonio is right now. That has been his specialty in the past. First game against Tulsa, big problems. Not a big shock, but it was disturbing. I didn't expect to see that again in Game 3. So now, is this going to be a season-long trend? That is the question. If they can figure that stuff out, they can still be good, still make a run at winning 8, 9 games, maybe more. It's possible. And beat some of those rivals that you guys hate so much. In the meantime, if you're digging this podcast, go to SpartanMag.com. Check it out. We'd like to have you a member over there. It's a lot of fun. Michigan analyst out of Atlanta asks, is there a quality control problem on this team? That's what we're getting at right now. It's one thing if it was all offensive line penalties and mistakes, but many of the penalties have been the defensive players or special teams on D, and this includes discipline, mistakes, and alignment, containment by the best players too often. You're right. I read that very poorly. I apologize. Let me say it again. Michigan State analyst out of Atlanta, Georgia says, it's one thing if it was all offensive line penalties and mistakes, but many of the penalties have been the defense or defensive players on special teams. And on defense, this includes discipline mistakes in alignment and containment by the best players too often. You're right. Is the defense trying to do too much instead of having everyone just do their respective jobs? Or is this more in focus due to the smaller margin of error due to offensive inefficiency? Great question. Those are all valid questions. We talked about it on the Skull Session podcast last week, myself and Big Mooby, talking about that on defense, as well as Michigan State played against Western Michigan, there was a little bit of sloppiness with some players, some gap assignment things, some containment things, nothing major, but little habits. And then there were some habits in this game. Benjamin with his 115-yard run. I think Antoine Simmons was a little bit late getting to his B gap, didn't get there, got sealed out and got loose. Small play, but it was part of a field goal drive. Containment. After the 4th and 13 conversion, 2 plays later on 3rd and 5, the quarterback got out again on a keeper to the sideline, almost got in for a touchdown, ended up getting in 1 play later. That's a 3rd and 5 conversion. You stop them there, they're kicking a field goal. Or they're not kicking a field goal, they're going for it on 4th down, you might beat them. Lost containment over there. It was Willikis coming in, and I didn't get an answer on that. Who's supposed to have containment out there? Nobody did. Nobody had that outside edge gap. Josiah Scott tried to get off a block and ran over there, and I think it was Tyree Thompson going full out to save the touchdown for the moment. Containment problem, losing leverage. on a key 3rd and 5 with the game on the line, containment problem there, that's attention to detail, yeah. And down the stretch, this excellent defense that had played so well for all of the game. So are they trying to do other people's jobs? That's commonly what the problem is when somebody is in someone else's gap or not in their own gap. I don't know about that 3rd and 5, but that was sloppy. I don't know if Willikis was at fault, but he was the defensive end over there, came in on an inside gap. Maybe someone else was supposed to scrape over the top on that. I don't know, but as a team, they failed on that one on 3rd and 5. Part of what cost them the game. 2 plays earlier, 3 plays earlier on that 4th and 13. A play that will live in infamy. You know, we talked about it after the game, wrote about it. D'Antonio said after the game that there was a spy, supposed to be a spy. And he said after the game that he didn't know what, where, or why, or what happened. He wanted to see the film. Then on Sunday night, he said we had people turning their back and people dropping too deep. Didn't pin it on anybody. Talking with players, they're not going to say who it was or whatever. But I will say this. After the game, they said there was a spy. Supposed to be a spy that didn't spy. I'm looking at it, and usually if there's a spy, the rest of the defense is tilted to allow for a spy to be in there. And if somebody is messing up an assignment, usually that guy is kind of like waywardly or just kind of roaming around with his thumb in his ear, not sure what to do. I didn't see anyone doing that. They were symmetrical in terms of players turning their back. Josh Butler did that. He was the one guy that turned his back. Now, looking at it, you have 3 defensive backs over the top, 3 safeties, and 2 corners, 5, a deep 5 shell. Joe Bacci said they were worried about the seams. I assume he's meaning the 3 deep safeties, the 2 seams in between the seam routes. Because that's, in the limited film they saw on this guy, the quarterback, that's where he'll look to go. Joe Bacci just made a really good play on 3rd down with the pass breakup on a crossing route, helping out Xavier Henderson with that one. Really good play. So maybe Bacci, after 60 minutes of football, was thinking deep, those deep seams a lot after that play before, getting backed off by the passes. He said after the game he had more of the hook area, said it was not his assignment as spy, and I believe him. D'Antonio said players drifted too far back in coverage. And I think when they looked at it again, I think Joe Bacci probably saw that he was probably too far deep. He was back there toward the goal line, not quite at the sticks. That's not really his guy to come over. You know, he was the guy that showed up to knock him out of bounds. Antoine Simmons is that linebacker that should have been in that area, or Butler. Bacci said today after practice, we all messed up. We all messed up. It's on everybody. Joe Bacci's an excellent player, but I'm thinking that he was one of the ones D'Antonio was talking about that dropped too far. He dropped far. Antoine Simmons dropped far, went with the wide receiver toward the post, and kind of overlapped where Bacci was. In zone coverage, you never usually see a safety or a linebacker going past where one of the other linebackers was. That's why Bacci ended up being over there. That should have been Simmons over there. I'm thinking, and in talking to some others with some defensive back knowledge, I've got a little bit more, way more people with a lot more than I do, but Simmons probably should have let that wide receiver go, or that receiver go, and stayed in that area. It's a zone situation, right? So I'm not sure there was one spy. I think Bacci maybe wasn't supposed to drift so much. Simmons wasn't supposed to go so far. Is Simmons trying to play hero ball a little bit there? Big interception in the opener, or was it against Western Michigan? You know, you just saw a little problem on offense, giving up a deep pass. People trying to do their best to shut it out, shut it down. Offense isn't scoring. It's kind of human nature. 60 minutes in the game, guys just want to do all of it. It's a possibility. MSU analyst out of Atlanta asks, are people trying to do other people's jobs? Simmons, maybe. Going too far on that one. Should have stayed over here. Bacci shouldn't have been in a situation where Bacci was closer to the play than he was. At the snap, Butler turns in cover 4. Very confident cover 4 bail. And then he kind of turns his back on the thing and continues to carry it and sink deeper in that cover 4 vertical column. With 3 deep safeties back there, do they play it like a cover? Do they need a cover 4? Playing a cover 4 back there with 3 safeties? Maybe not. Probably not. D'Antonio said guys had their backs turned. One guy had his back turned. That was Butler. Judging by those three back there and what D'Antonio said, I'm guessing that maybe Butler was supposed to let that receiver go and cloud the flat. If he clouds the flat, he's there and the quarterback doesn't have a place to run. If he clouds the flat and Simmons doesn't go with that receiver, he's right there. If Bocce doesn't drift so far, he's right there. Is Butler trying to make up for his mistake earlier? Is Simmons trying to do everything he can outside of his job description? Is Bocce influenced by that deep, close call one play earlier? All of the above, possibly. Are guys just doing their job and trusting their teammate to do theirs? Maybe not. And that is quality control. And on that play, after the game, I looked into it and I thought that maybe there was one player that was supposed to spy that didn't show up. I was talking about Michael Dowell on the other side. Now I'm not so sure. When they came out, it was three receivers over here, one receiver over there. Dowell was over there, so they had an excess of DBs over here. So that made me think that maybe he was the excess guy that's supposed to kick into the middle. But then they sent one in motion. Nobody went with him. Declares zone pretty much. And Dowell stayed there and basically played it similar to Simmons. It was very symmetrical. I would have to look again at the other corner, Josiah Scott, to see if he clouded it. But if he did or didn't, doesn't mean that that's what we're supposed to do over here, because sometimes they'll do one of one and one of the other. They didn't get it done. And the disturbing thing is that they took 2 timeouts, talked about it, and still came out and had their biggest defensive breakdown of the season after 2 timeouts. That's quality control with a capital Q, right? And that is un-D'Antonio-like. The rest of it, as bad as the offense was, they scored at the end. Defense was holding up. The rest of it was good enough to win despite the calls that went against them until that play. That was not good enough to win. The third down play, not good enough to win. Problematic that it was the defense that did that. Correctable with some good players. That defense will rise again and be even more determined in a late game situation. So, trying to do other people's jobs, quality control, illegal motion penalties, not lining up wrong or not lining up right, costing them that timeout, all of these things. Now, in terms of penalties, Raekwon Williams, talked to him after practice today. He said the one on the sack fumble, he disagreed with that. Said it was part of what he was doing. Now, the hand to the face on the roughing the passer, he agreed that his hand was up there too long. So he agreed that one was and one wasn't. So I'm guessing in the film room, Michigan State's coaches looked at that roughing the passer, and I think it was up in here, and I don't know, it was close to the face. And I'm guessing it was the umpire that threw that one. Tim Schroeder, the umpire, saw that one. Didn't see the guy hurdling. Did not see the late hit against Higby. He was standing right there with him. Didn't see the late hit on Darrell Stewart. He was standing right there talking to him. Didn't see the late hit. Didn't see the late hit. Didn't see the hurdler. But he saw the hand to the face. Tim Schroeder. So those penalties, some of them are discipline, quality control. Others might not be penalties at all. The punt return on Cody White went down to the 30-yard line, got called back. Now, it got called back. Michigan State still drove and scored, went ahead 7-3, and ended up eating more clock. So it did Michigan State favor in the long run. But when it happened, that's the side judge Anthony Little with the crossbow. It's got a good arm on that flag. Reminded me of the DeAndre Cobb kickoff return in Hawaii. Not accusing anyone of anything, but I was suspicious. I've seen bad officiating. And bad officiating is just human error. I can appreciate that. I make plenty of errors myself. On to the next question. Old Tuck asks, is Hayward the next Leroy McFadden? He already has more yards than Leroy McFadden. Leroy McFadden from Connecticut came in as a former 4-star recruit, was offered by Nebraska, went to prep school, came to Michigan State in the Nick Saban era, and was a big-time recruit, but lacking in other areas and didn't last very long. A lot of talent, a lot of trouble. There are a lot of people in that category in the Nick Saban era. But Connor Hayward has already done a lot more than McFadden did. Might not have as much talent, though. Old Tuck. Oh, that was already got into that one. Rob South, offense did enough to win that game. Defense let us down on that last drive. You know, it's a good point, Rob South. Offense did enough to win the game. Not a lot. Here's the thing. Offense only scored 7 points, I'm hearing. Offense only scored 7 points. It's a putrid offense. Offense only scored 7 points. Well, offense scored 13 points. Or 16, if you count the last one. They did their job to put the kicking game in position to score points. The 3 missed field goals are not on the offense. Yeah, you'd rather punch those in the red zone. But offense did their job to score 16 points. That's not a lot. In a 10-possession game, it's not terrible. With the Michigan State defense, it's enough to win the game against most teams. People talking about 16-3, you know, if they don't score at the end, and they did, and they deserved to get the last touchdown or whatever. But that game is 7-3. Could be 13-3, but it's 7-3 on that sack fumble when Schroeder throws that flag in there. That sack fumble, Michigan State had just scored. They get that at the 25-yard line, up 7-3. Real good chance they kick a field goal at least. I know they'd already missed a field goal, but what's his name? Coughlin comes in 40 out of 48. He misses 3. He actually made 2, had to re-kick 2 of them, right? So it's even hard to blame him. All gets back to the loose screws. 10-3. Probably eat another couple minutes. You're at least going up 10-3 with 3 minutes to go. Good chance it's 14-3. Or a solid chance they punch it in 14-3. Solid chance, Jim, the red zone offense sucks. They had 2 red zone opportunities, scored 1 touchdown. Now, on the other field goals, they're on the edge of the red zone. But if you score there 14-3, I mean, if they don't throw that flag, man, the percentage of winning goes up to 90%. If you're making those 2 field goals, the rest of the game may not flow exactly the same, but it's not like Arizona State was going to drive in chunks. They got the one big one on the last drive in desperation, and with the benefit of fourth down is a benefit for a team on the way back because it makes any offense, 33% better? Because instead of 3 downs, you get an extra down. And they needed that extra down. You make 2 field goals. You get that sack fumble. I mean, that game was close to Michigan State winning 17-3, 20-3, 23-3. It was that close to being one of those 23-3 games. We've all seen games where Michigan State ends up winning 28-7 or 28-6, 21-6, 23-6, when it was actually closer than that. It was like 10-6 the whole game. Then they score twice and win 24-6. We saw that during the Rose Bowl era. Happened all the time. Games are closer than the score indicated. And back then when Michigan State was not making many mistakes, D'Antonio always preached the difference between winning and losing is that much. Now we're seeing that much flip the other way against Michigan State, and rightfully so. They're making too many mistakes. So, I forget what the question was, but Doors Fan 91 says 7 points is pathetic versus that team. Possibly so. I think it's a pretty good defense. I think their corners are good. Defensive line is tricky. There'll be some teams that do well against them. They missed a bunch of tackles against Kent State. Didn't miss any tackles against Michigan State. Not many. Missed 1 on the Barnett play. But 7 points, you're right, that is bad. But consider it, 16 points. Doesn't make it a lot better. But I've heard people say it's ridiculous for this team to try to win games 16-7. That's out of style. That's terrible. I said this on the VCast also. Sometimes that happens. Penn State beat Pittsburgh 17-10 because Pittsburgh's a huddle team that slows it down. Iowa State, it was game was in the teens because Iowa slows it down. Arizona State goes no huddle, but they melt the play clock every single time to shorten the game, so they slow it down. And you get the ball 10 times, you score 1 touchdown, you kick 3 field goals, you're scoring on 40% of your drives. Now, I'm not saying the offense is actually good. What we're looking at here is Michigan State crappy? Are they really a bad team? Is the offense really this bad? Last year, there were definitely times when the offense was terrible. You had a backup quarterback, or Lewerke was playing injured, the revolving door at wide receiver and running back and offensive line. You know what happened, and it was terrible. Plus, they played in some crazy weather sometimes. They were just bad on offense. Everybody knows that. 400 yards in this game. They crossed their own 48-yard line 9 times in 10 drives. Okay, they lost. They scored 7 points, bottom line. I get that. So, does that mean they're scoring 7 points every game? I'm not ready to say that. I'm not ready to say they're going to be as predictably bad as they were last year on offense, with the problems last year being somewhat understandable in some ways. So what is Michigan State? My thing is, all right, 7 points on the scoreboard, that's one barometric reading, and that cost you the game. Look under the hood to the rest of it. 400 yards, 9 out of 16 on third downs. It was good. They were good on third down. 1 out of 2 in the red zone in terms of touchdowns. On the edge of the red zone, drives were conking out. So, Lewerke's playing well, doing some good things. Not perfect, but he's playing well. The deep ball, I don't know if that's ever going to be there unless Cody White gets it back together. He's got to go to work and win at the line of scrimmage against good corners, and he's got to get set up at pre-snap and do his homework so that that doesn't happen again. Running game, new offensive line, remains to be seen. Elijah Collins showing some life. I think he's got a chance. I'm looking at it as an offense that did enough to generate 16 points. Not enough, but 16 points in 10 drives against that defense. Not enough for most games, but enough to win with this defense. And that's what we said coming into the year. If this defense is going to be elite and the offense can just be mediocre, if it can go from putrid to mediocre, you go mediocre offense with elite defense, just score 21 points a game, what might this team be capable of? And then Michigan State goes out and in this game kind of played well enough to generate 21 points, especially if they got in that defensive turnover. And people are saying, they only scored 7 points, and it's archaic to try to win that way. They're not trying to win 7-3. They're capable of winning 7-3. Would prefer to win 21-3. Are they capable of doing that 21 type of thing and score and not be terrible? I think they're capable of not being terrible on offense is what I'm getting at. And I think there was enough to see in that game that would indicate that they're capable of being at least mediocre to functional on offense. Which, if you combine with elite defense, can win you 8 or 9 games. Put you in position to get a bounce and maybe win more. Still, that's if you tighten up some of those screws we're talking about. The offense in general, this is a key point. You look at all 10 drives. We talked about this on the VCast. 10 drives. 3 field goals, 1 touchdown, 1 fumble. So what about the other 5 drives? What were the drive killers? I looked at all 10 drives because you're looking under the hood to try to get clues on where this team is. Go back to the first drive of the game. Got a couple first downs. Actually, I can't remember if it was a 3 and out or not. I don't think it was. Maybe it was a 6 and out. But anyway, on the series that led to the punt, first down, that got stopped 1 yard on a gain, an inside zone. A stunt beat Luke Campbell on that one. Those stunts I'm talking about. 2nd and 9, they snap with Allen on a counter trap. Something new, a real intricate play. He snaps and kind of pulls as an escort. Defensive end sees him, submarines him, takes out Allen. And the edge guy submarined him and made the tackle. So good job by the edge guy for Arizona State, seeing that, taking it on, doing a good job of that. Now it's 3rd and 7. Chase Lucas, the corner for Arizona State. Pretty handsy, no flag. CJ Hayes, does he need to defeat the hands and get his hands on the ball? I'm not sure. But that corner looked back for a flag. No flag, got a punt. So that was the drive killer on the first drive. Didn't run on first down or second down. The stunting got to them. The handsy got to him. No flag. Second drive, Michigan State drives a little bit. Lewerke fumbles. There, it would have been 2nd and 6 at the Arizona State 40-yard line. He fumbles. So that's the second drive killer. Nobody's fault except Lewerke's. Does that mean the offense is putrid? Quarterback fumbles on his own read. You be the judge. I'd say no. I'd say it's one of those football things. But you lose the turnover battle, what happens? Michigan State lost the turnover battle. What happens? Third drive. The drive killer was holding on Matt Allen. And that was, ironically, Michigan State at the 48-yard line. At their 48, looking to go deep. Not open. And that was the one where they had Stewart running a deep post. And White was running a deep out. Anyway, looking to go deep. Holding, because you're holding it longer. Holding on Matt Allen on his, I think it was a snap and pull coming over in like an escort protection. Kind of stumbled coming out under the outside linebacker. Held him. So the irony there is the drive stopper is Michigan State looking to go deep on 1st and 10 from the 48. End up getting out of your rhythm. 1st and 20. They end up at 3rd and 16. They go a comeback route to Darrell Stewart. And the cornerback Sterling Cole was holding on the comeback. You remember if you were there. No flag. Go look at on the replay. 3rd and 16. If it was the other way, might have been a flag. Michigan State, had 9 penalties. Arizona State had, where are we at here? Penalties. Let me give you the exact. Michigan State had 10. Arizona State had 7. 10-7. Well, Davion Williams didn't hold, so it's 9-7. Raekwon Williams, debatable on that personal foul. Get rid of that. 8-7. Late hit against Higby. Now it's 8-8. Late hit on Stewart. 9-8. They've got more penalties. Late hit on Cody White. Now it's 10-8. They've got more penalties. Holding on that one. 11-8. Now they've got 12-8. They've got more penalties. Those penalties go differently. These drives are sustained. That turnover stands. And this game is 24-3. That's football. That's football. Now, that's one of the great things about football. Every possession means so much. Every game means so much. That's why there's so much emotion. That's why you guys are so into this. That's why there's so much criticism for the coaches. And I understand that. In terms of drive killers, drive number 3, holding on Matt Allen, they have to punt. 4th drive, they missed the field goal. Now this one was a 47-yard field goal. And this was after they picked up the 4th and 1 quarterback sneak. Then the very next play, 1st and 10, Michigan State runs a zone read, and they end up getting behind the sticks on 1st and 10. Zone read keeps it, loss of 4. On that one, quarterbacks are judged by decision making in terms of who to throw to, reading coverages. These days with the zone reads and RPOs, making decisions on whether to leave it in the belly of the running back while reading an edge defender is a big part of quarterback decision making. And Lewerke still new at that. He's still getting a hang of that. And on that one, he kept it. Defensive end did a really good job playing the mesh point. And Lewerke kept it, got caught for a loss of 4. If he leaves it in there, maybe it's no gain, maybe it's a gain of 1, gain of 2. I'm not sure, but they lose 4 on a zone read on 1st down. So it's another drive stop or a negative 1st and 1. Is it anyone's fault? Did anyone lose a block? No, it's not like people are getting physically beaten on this one. It's a quarterback decision, and he had a real good game. But on film, I'm sure that he would rather have done that one differently. And on that one, that was spread out. 2 receivers by 2 receivers. And Hayward was the running back. Consciously, subconsciously, did he not trust to leave the ball with Hayward? If that had been Collins, would he have been more inclined to leave it with him because Collins has better vision and cutting ability? Not sure. So they get to 3rd and 14. Now this is another one of those loose screw quality control situations. Again, we're going over the list of the 5 drive killer situations, or 4 or 5 of them, and whose fault they were, and not to blame anybody, but to see how correctable things are. To see if you categorize all these and if there's too much commonality in one particular area. And I'm not seeing commonality in one area. We just talked about a Brian Lewerke play. He's not going to make that wrong decision very often. The holding on Matt Allen, he kind of stumbled out of there. Michigan State's going deep. They don't go deep very often, but that's one of the weaknesses of this team. When they try to go deep, they get themselves in trouble. So on the missed field goal, 3rd and 14, that was... Now this one is where you're pulling your hair out if you are Lewerke or Brad Salem. Because it's 3rd and 14. You come to the line of scrimmage, and Cody White is on the wrong side. So you stop and you tell him to come over to the other side. So he comes over, and I don't know if it's a case where they snapped it before he was set or if he got set and then went. I thought it was the latter. I thought he got set but then left early. Whatever. It was thrown off kilter because he lined up incorrectly. Cody White's a junior. Cannot have that. 3rd and 14. Probably not going to pick it up anyway, right? Well, leaves early. They do Dotson on one of those delay release slants. That was the new wrinkle in the offense. And they got some big plays from tight ends on that delayed release. First time they've ever done it. Now it's on film. But it could have, should have, would have been a big wrinkle that helped them win this game. Good stuff, new stuff. Delayed release, slant. Dotson drops it. Illegal motion, flag. Even if he would have caught it, he would have gained the 12 yards. And Michigan State would have been, let's see that. They would have been inside the 15-yard line. Missed field goal, ended at the Arizona State 29-yard line. That would have been to the 19, to the 17, at least the 17-yard line, 1st and 10. You're Brad Salem. You got a great play call on because the play works. The tight end is wide open. What the hell else is an offensive coordinator supposed to do? It's a new concept, wide open. Putrid offense? What, if you're the quarterback, your wide receiver lines up wrong. Throw it to the dude, drops it. Good play, screwed up. Then you come out and miss a field goal. Drive killer was initially that 1st and 10 loss of 4 on the zone read. Then on 3rd and 14, they were getting ready to pick it up. They had the play to pick it up, but they didn't execute it right. Wide receiver didn't line up right. Tight end dropped it. Dotson had a real good game, but he dropped that one. A lot of things, you got a lot of screws to tighten up, a lot of areas to improve, but it's not like you're asking, a quarterback to become Johnny Unitas. It's not like you're asking a running back to become Earl Campbell. That'd be nice, but plays are there for this junior tight end to make the play. It didn't happen. So then had one more drive before the end of the first half, got down there and missed the field goal. You guys remember that. That was the one time in the red zone there was a red zone failure. They get down there, 1st and 10 to the 14-yard line, looking to the left side, covered. They kind of drop deep, good coverage. Check down over here. C.J. Hayes gains 2 yards, gets out of bounds. He probably could have fought forward for a gain of 3 or 4, but I think there were instructions to get out of bounds. They had 2 timeouts left, didn't use them. Could have gotten 2 more yards, gains 2. That's first down. Again, we're looking for a drive killer. 2nd and 8, quarterback draw. You might look at it and say, quarterback draw, what the hell is that? Well, quarterback draw works well inside the 10-yard line. Sometimes this was a quarterback draw with an RPO sewn in. They had Darryl Stewart coming over here for a bubble. I've never seen a quarterback draw with an RPO bubble option off of it. But it had it. He took it, gained 4 yards. He's a good runner. Didn't get out on that one. I've heard some people say, quarterback draw, why are you running that? Well, it didn't go in for a touchdown. So that part didn't work. But quarterback draw works inside the 10-yard line quite frequently. I've never seen it with an RPO. That was interesting. So it was new. I mean, that's unpredictable, and it's imaginative. Got 4 yards. Now it's 3rd and 4. So now it's 3rd and 4. Michigan State runs a snag concept. You got C.J. Hayes in the curl. You got a running back in the flat and the tight end to the corner. All right, on this one, if you watched the telecast, you saw Brian Lewerke being very angry at someone. He was angry at the wide receiver, C.J. Hayes. It's one of those things on the field to play with a teammate, no big deal. I talked to him a little bit about it after the game. It's what I thought. That curl, that curl part of the snag concept triangle. Say the linebacker's right here. He ran it right here into the curl. What Lewerke wanted and where he threw it was right here. Sit down in space. You don't have to get that close to the linebacker. C.J. Hayes, still new to the playing group, still new as a starter. They threw that to him 1 week earlier, and he turned and went 22 yards with it. Lewerke's got to come out right now. Came out quickly. He threw it where a veteran receiver, wide receivers and quarterbacks, you hear about being on the same page. Some of the telepathy between the two. Michigan State lacked it on that one. So he runs the curl, and the ball ends up low and away from him, incomplete. And you're thinking he was inaccurate on that? No, he threw it to where the receiver was supposed to run it, like an option. It's not really an option route, but you're supposed to make that read. Not blaming C.J. Hayes necessarily, younger guy. Talked to someone today, made an interesting point. Why isn't Darryl Stewart the receiver on that one? They had Darryl Stewart on the backside. Shouldn't you be featuring him? Maybe they relied on C.J. Hayes because he made a big play on a snag concept a week before. I don't know. But that's the drive killer. Incomplete. Ready to kick a field goal. Kick it, make it. Delay a game. Had 2 timeouts, didn't use one. You know that. Back 5 yards, missed the field goal. The thing that people are so mad about is that a lot of the errors, some of the main errors, not taking a timeout there, burning the timeouts at the end of the game on defense, having 12 men on the field, those are all elementary, 100 level, easy for the armchair person like you or me or fans or media to look at and say that's a mistake. When you have a mistake on calling timeouts or using them improperly or not saving timeouts or 12 men on the field, that allows stupid people like me that don't know anything about football to say, man, that's a stupid thing. They lost it on the timeouts. When in actuality, there's a lot of other things going on that were quality, but not enough to win. But when you make mistakes at that level, that's why I've never seen so much groundswell of negativism against D'Antonio as there was after this game ever. Because the mistakes were so elementary. Because that emboldens the idiots. and I'm an idiot. But when I talk about the good things that are going on defense, I mentioned this to Paul today. You look at it this way. The defense is great and messed up at the end, but people are like, on our message board at SpartanMag.com, they're like, yeah, but offense is part of coaching too. I was making the point, yeah, the defense is really good, but people are like, well, it's time for the coach to get rid of the offensive coaches, or it's time for the coach to step down. Well, we ran a poll on that, and I think 85% of the people don't necessarily agree that the coach should be gone. They believe in Mark D'Antonio at SpartanMag.com, and well, they should, in my opinion. But they're like, well, offense is part of coaching too. It is, but here's my point. There's probably 5 good defenses, maybe 10 really good defenses in the country, maybe 3 or 4 elite ones. Michigan State's trying to become elite, in my opinion, on defense. Not there. You saw why. 10 really good defenses. Michigan State played defense in that game, except for the last 2 plays. The type of defense that would be the envy of 90%, 98% of the programs around the country. When you have that, you don't throw it out with the bathwater just to bring in somebody who's promising snake and oil on offense. Do you understand where I'm going with this? When you have a defense like that takes years and years to get that flywheel going, and it's going for Michigan State, evaluation, player development, recruiting on defense, that wheel is going. Younger players being taught by older players, being mentored, being shown how to do it. That thing is going strong. When that's going on, you keep that going, because that's the hard part. There might be 5 or 10 really good defenses in the country, and there's 3 or 4 programs that are really good on defense every year, or maybe 4 out of 5 years, and Michigan State's there right now. There's maybe 7 or 8 really good defensive teams or programs. There's probably 30 or 40 really good offensive programs. In other words, defense is the hard part. That's the special part. That's the multi-million-dollar commodity, and Michigan State has it at a bargain basement price for what they're paying Mike Tressel. You don't upset this apple cart, people, if you're Michigan State. If you think you're Indiana with Bill Mallory, even if they lose to Northwestern, you just keep working on this. And I know next year the talent's going to drop a little bit, but maybe sometimes when you think a team is going to be down, they can surprise you. I don't know. This part, the offense, is screwed up, and they're working on it. And I think they've made some gains. It didn't show up on the scoreboard, but in terms of 9 out of 16 on third down, doing some good things with some new concepts, the offense did enough to generate 16 points. Special teams didn't do their job. Now, it's got to be better, no question about that, and they're trying to figure that out. But red zone, C.J. Hayes, if he catches it, if he stops where he's supposed to, it's 1st and 10 and 1st and goal inside the 5, maybe even scores. Telepathy screws, right? Second half, drive killer, 1st and 10, sack on 1st and 10, looking deep. They got a 1st down, 1st and 10, looking deep. On that one, Cody White got jammed, sack. Then they end up getting some of those plays, some of those yards back. And 4th and 1 was the stoppage. That was the first drive of the second half. 4th and 1 stoppage. We talked about that one. Could Hayward have cut it into the pile and gotten it? I'm not sure. Second drive, they drove to the 42-yard line and punted. What was the drive stopper? 3rd down and 4. They looked deep on this one too. 1st and 10 at the 42-yard line between the 40s, looking deep. Covered, scramble, keep one. That was keep for a gain of 1. That was a 1st and 10 between the 40s. A good time to look deep. Michigan State tried it 3 times, incomplete, sack, gain of 1. Because the receiver, that in my opinion is where you see the wide receiver separation, like that top end talent. Michigan State doesn't have that. And if you don't have that, you better be damn tight in these other areas to win at the level that we think Michigan State should aspire to achieve. So it really shows itself when they do try to go deep against someone like Arizona State. So ends up 3rd and 4. This is with 3:25 left in the third quarter. This is only their second drive of the second half, but that clock is going away. Even though Arizona State wasn't driving, they were keeping the ball in bounds and melting play clock. 3rd and 4, 3:25 left. Michigan State's got 5-man protection. They bring 6. So somebody's hot. Edge, outside linebacker, he's the hot guy. Quarterback's got to see that, and it's got to come out. He had some, someone's got to come out on a hot route. There were hot routes available. I don't know if they were open or not, but Lewerke was sacked on that one. He's got 5 blocking 6. He needs to know that's hot. That's got to come out. Holds it. Sack. Lewerke had a real good game. Drive stopper on that one. Tough play to make. Sometimes you're going to punt, I guess. All right. So what category is that? It's not the offensive line getting beat. Even though it was a sack, that was not the offensive line getting beat. First and 10, the wide receiver's not getting it done. They're doing their best, but limited. The coach for Arizona State, Herm Edwards, was saying, our DBs, our corners, we wanted to put our guys in man-to-man situations and let them take them on. And they did, sometimes press, sometimes off man. And just handsy enough, they did a pretty good job in pass coverage. Third time they had the ball in the second half, drove, touchdown. Fourth time they had the ball was they got the lead in the last part of the game. And 7-3, they get it back with 8:37 left. And they ran it twice. And didn't get a lot of yards, a little bit of booze there. People like, yeah, you're being conservative, you're being predictable. Well, yeah, you're in your own 10-yard line. And your last two plays, you gained 5 and 9 on run plays for touchdown. Historically, Michigan State, offensive line, if you believe in past glories, run game gets progressively better at the end of the game. You're foolish if you don't at least try to run right there. I know LSU came out against Texas with a 7-point lead in the same situation, went to the air, went down and scored again. But that's against Texas when LSU's given up 45 points. Penn State against Pittsburgh, ran it, then passed it, then ran it again, punted. Pittsburgh came down with a chance to tie at the end. It's an uncomfortable situation. 4-minute drill. At some point, you have to be able to run the ball. Nick Saban would have ran the ball right there. Dabo Swinney would have ran the ball right there, even Dabo Swinney. First and 10 at your own 10-yard line. Up 7-3, 5 minutes to go. You want to throw right there? Like I said, the previous two runs had just gained a total of 14 yards, 5 and 9, touchdown. So they run inside zone, and they ran inside zone. It's like, you hear people talking about, oh, they're stacked up. They know you're going to run. You're not going to get that. Hey, go back and look at it. First and 10 on 10-yard line, Arizona State had 2 deep safeties. It was 7 against 7 in the box. You run against that. Even if you got a pass play on you, audible to a run. They ran it, and no gain. Inside zone, Luke Campbell didn't quite climb out to an inside linebacker, and he was angry with himself. If he had, maybe that's a 2-yard gain. Not much push, though, quite frankly. Not much push. And that was 7 against 7, not much push. And you know what? When chips were down, Arizona State at the line of scrimmage was pretty firm on both sides of the ball. Their offensive line, we all heard about how they lost their corner and their left tackle and all that. Well, their center and their left tackle. Their center is their best offensive lineman. They moved him to left tackle, and then a center got hurt, and then another center got hurt, or something like that, and they're playing a true freshman center. Except against Michigan State, they brought that left tackle back to center in order to go against Panashuk and Williams. So Panashuk and Williams, and he did a good job against those guys. Panashuk and Williams did not dominate like we would have expected if they had gone against that true freshman center. And in the pregame interview, D'Antonio on the sideline talking to Fox reporter said, they've got a true freshman center. So Michigan State was expecting to put a big dent in their offense inside out. Arizona State very smartly brought back that best offensive lineman, put him at center, and put a different true freshman at left tackle. Now you got to pick your poison. That left tackle's got to deal with Willekes a little bit, and Willekes made some plays, including the sack fumble, which should have ended the game. Flagged. So, first down, didn't gain anything. Second down, was an inside zone again, can't remember, didn't gain much. So then third down was the pass interference on Dotson. So Dotson's coming off the line of scrimmage. You can use hands to get off press, and then you can't really continue to block the guy. My man Little threw a flag on him saying he was continuing to block pass interference. He used hands at the beginning, and then he just ran, and that corner just kind of latched onto Dotson because he didn't want Dotson to escape. Little, back there 15 yards, thought that Dotson was, sled blocking him. They completed the pass. Was it to Stewart? I can't remember. First down, pretty much ball game. Might have needed, at that point, Arizona State would have been burning their timeouts. Might have needed one more first down, but it would have been a huge completion. Flag. So you've beaten them, sack fumble. No, you got to beat them again, flag. Then you beat them on this third down. No, you got to beat them again, flag. You got to beat them 3 times to beat them once. 3rd and 12 slant. Stewart dropped it. You know the rest of it. So those were the drive stoppers. On that one, 3rd and 7, it was the flag against Dotson. That was the drive stopper. The other one, Lewerke, 3rd and 4, hot read, has to make a quicker read. The other one, 4th and 1 stoppage, got to pick up a yard, right? And that was everything in the first half. Is it all one category? You'd have to do the math on those and categorize those yourself. But all in all, I'm not seeing an inept offense that can't move the ball for their life to depend on it. It's not like they just look terrible, like can't throw it like last year and can't run it at all like last year. Against the defense, that's pretty good, I think. We'll have to wait and see how they do with Colorado. Have to wait and see how Michigan State does with Northwestern in an intense must-win situation. We're running long on this thing. Let me get some questions here real quick. Sorry about being long-winded on that. Hopefully you guys maybe got something out of that. A lot of people with a lot of opinions about Michigan State football right now. But we look into it pretty deeply, and we're kind of proud of the research and understanding that we have. You can disagree with it if you want, but we just put it out there. We're not going to be here crying about stuff, calling for people to lose their scholarships, calling for people to get fired. We're trying to be, I wear the green and white here in terms of SpartanMag.com and the logo, but you'll see a Michigan State helmet there, but also a Georgia one and an Outback logo. Trying to be objective as we can. I graduated from Michigan State School of Journalism. Not going to be wearing pom-poms here. You're taught to be objective. Am I less than objective with some of these guys? Yeah, because some of these players I've covered since they were 15 or 16 years old. You talk to them every week, you get to know them as people. What kind of human being are you if you don't enjoy seeing someone that you know have some success? That's part of it, but when they don't have success, try not to be emotional about it. Try to be clinical about it. That's what we try to do at SpartanMag.com. We feel we owe it to you to do it that way, and you guys can like it or not, or whatever, but that's the way we try to do it. Let's see, Rob South, offense did enough to win that game. He says, Spartan forever. Is this actually working for anyone? So, Spartan forever. Hope you got a chance for it to work. Old Tuck, is Hayward the next Leroy McFadden? It says there's 64 people. I got 10 thumbs up, so hopefully it's working for somebody. It's not working for me now. It seems to be working for somebody, but I've never been able to get the video up here, so it says 64 people are watching, so I'm just going to keep rolling with it. I might just be broadcasting to my imagination right now. I don't know. But let me go through these questions, and then we'll let you get back to your business. Doors fan, defense did let down, agree, but offense did not do enough. I don't argue with that. 7 points is pathetic versus that team. That's your opinion? I understand that 7 is, but the offense generated 16, which is not great, but it's enough to win. And you can win low-scoring games, and winning low-scoring games is going to have to be what this team has to do sometimes. Defense, they're going to have to win some games 17-9. That's going to have to happen sometimes. So it's working. Thanks, David. Rob South, you're right. Pathetic offense, but they did enough to win the game. Defense didn't. It'd be an interesting argument. JJ Huddle 79. Dobbs can figure it out. Might take a second, but he will figure it out. Good confidence in Devontae Dobbs there by JJ Huddle. Tyler Miller. As far as Dobbs goes, he moved pretty well in that Western Michigan game. There's going to be some, filtering out some stunts and things like that. There's going to be some freshman mistakes. But wouldn't that be something if he came in and played really well left tackle? He's got some ability. Good kid. He'll put his time in the film room. Tyler Miller, with the recent loss, will this hurt our recruiting nationally, or more importantly, if we lose in conference games, will that hurt us more? Which is more important, nationally or conference games? I don't know. You just got to win 7 or 8, or 7 or 8, get in there, and you got to have a pulse on offense. I think Michigan State's offense being so bad last year did hurt offensive recruiting at the end of last year, and also during the winter and spring, heading into the off-season part of recruiting. And it opened the door for negative recruiters to attack Michigan State. And there was negative recruiting out there by 3 or 4 programs especially. So they need to do some things on offense to shut those people up. And no, Michigan wasn't one of them as far as I could detect. Old Tuck. It would seem to the naked eye that our defense didn't miss a beat when Narduzzi left, but what else is MSU missing that Narduzzi provided? Quality control? Yes. I'd say so. And they were really good on defense last year. Recency bias, people call it these days. One game, messed up at the end, guys trying to do other people's jobs, things like that. Let's see how they do this week against Northwestern. Hunter Johnson, the transfer from Clemson, looked terrible against Stanford. His backup went in, got hurt. Then it's Hunter Johnson's game. Bye week. Then they played this weekend against UNLV. Did a little bit better. Looked pretty good on the opening drive. Hit a couple of passes on the opening drive. Scored on a zone read keeper. So he looked a little better. His stats overall were not great. I'll watch the rest of that game, getting ready for the pre-snap read later in the week. J.J. Huddle from Flint, but now in the D. What's the word on number 29? When is he slated back? You're talking about Shaq Brown, right? Yeah. And Shaq Brown, I felt, was right there with Josh Butler competing for that job, and then he got hurt. And Butler, I've said all year, everyone loves him. Everybody loves his dogs. I'm not sure he's up at the, you can see what he is now. He's good. He's lacking a little confidence there. He's pretty good. Not elite, right? Everybody loves Josh, though. And that's one guy I'd root for, and I'd like to see him come around and do better for him. Make me feel good about me if he did real well. Old Tuck, he's from Ludington. Good fishing out there. Good sports. Bob, Oregon. Better than any place on Lake Huron. What are you talking about, man? Lake Huron is awesome. There's better walleye in Lake Huron than there is in Lake Michigan. I love Lake Michigan. It's beautiful. Beautiful people. Lake Huron people are a little more down to earth, which I like. A little more down to earth. A little less pretense. You know what I'm saying? Got the walleye. Lake Michigan coming off Lake Michigan into was it the Betsy River where they had the world record brown trout 5 years ago? But then they lost the record to someone else. J.J. Huddle saw Gillison start of the game, but don't remember seeing him much after that. Did he have a rough start? Great question. Saw him a little bit. You're right. They stayed mostly with Seibert and Dotson. That did not occur to me, but you're exactly right. Did he have a rough start? Not that I saw. Matthew Wolf, Cole Chewins, in your opinion, will we see him this year? Yes, I think we will see him. And for his sake, I hope that he can do everything he wants to do as a senior and plays the whole season and comes out of it feeling okay. Would not shock me if he comes back and has a relapse, and it's going to be tough. Good kid, graduated, working on his master's in finance, I think now. Academic All-American 2-time. Really good kid. Spartans forever. What do you think the reaction of the fan base would be if we lose to Northwestern 42-41? They would say that the defense doesn't work anymore, which is what they said when Michigan State gave up a lot of yards to Western Michigan back in 2014. Remember that, when that Braverman kid just kept zipping through them? Michigan State was in the process of updating its defense throughout the 2014-15 season into 16. Even though they had those problems in 16, then it really gained traction at 17 and really did last year in 18. Let's see. JJ Huddle 79, recruiting. What are your thoughts on the offensive caliber of players we sign? What do you think our issues are there in recruiting? Offensive recruiting has been a little slow this year, and for some good reasons. I think Michigan State's kind of hoping to have a good season this year so they can go out and get some more looking at offensive tackles, maybe even quarterback. It's not a great year for quarterback nationally. I heard Luganville talking about this last week. Nationally, it's a down year for quarterbacks. And he flat out said, if your team does not have a quarterback this year, don't sweat it. Next year, there's a surplus of quarterbacks. That's his analysis, not mine. I'm just regurgitating what he said. I got a lot of respect for what he says. So that's the situation. Michigan State's been looking at the Stroud kid out in California, but he's done so well lately, I suspect he's going to stay out west. Is there a chance that Michigan State can go and poach a commitment from some other school, a MAC school, or something of that nature, to use a D'Antonio phrase? Possibly. They thought they had a shot at the Prater kid that went to Cincinnati. Then there was the Chubba Purdy. You know what happened with him. On offense, what do they have? Ricky White from Georgia. He's off to a good start this year. Looks pretty good, Ricky White looks okay. He's done some good things in the field this year. We'll see. As far as there's offensive players, Ian Stewart, I think he's good. 6'3", underrated player from Gibraltar, Michigan. I think he's looking good. Strong kid, run after the catch. Benny Fowler type, I'd say. Tight end, Tommy Guajardo, injury last week, is looking okay coming off that injury. I think he's a good quality tight end at about 6'3", 6'4", 230. Can move his feet. That's it for offensive players right now. They've got room for some others. They're still hunting, and they need some. The Mahanster. Jim, what's up? Mahanster. He's a frequent poster over at the Underground Bunker message board. We appreciate him over there. JJ Huddle again. Our offensive players are slated to hop on the phones when school ends. Smile and dial. Talking about recruiting. Yeah, you're right. The Mahanster. Can these O-line guys in the 2 deep be ready fast enough to pick up the slack? That's what we all need to find out. In the 2 deep, Carrick has stepped up and been functional. You've seen that. Can other people do that? Well, Higby technically is a second stringer going out of left tackle. Dobbs, Isaiah played a little bit as an up back in that triple stack I against Western. Got on the field a little bit. That's a sign that they think that he's capable of doing some things. Does that bug you guys when I look up like that? Sorry about that. That's how my brain works sometimes. I have to go up there and try to find it sometimes. Offensive line, dude, I don't know if these starters would have been good this year. And we don't know now because they've lost a couple. So you'll find out when I do. Huddle, no speed at that spot. You're right about the wide receivers. The first time in a while we have not had a bailout receiver. Yeah, like some of those, back shoulder throws. Even R.J. Shelton had a few of those bailout plays, right? You're right. Rob South, horrible, suspicious officiating. That's what I said. Rob South, the Cody White punt return flag was so late I couldn't believe it was real. Yeah, and you saw him throw it from a crazy angle late. Suspicious. Did you go back and look at that replay? I think I got film on that. I might post it on the board if I get time. Dude, the replay, go back and look at it. Number 14, Davion Williams. You can see him during the entire punt. And they call holding on that. Dude, he wasn't even holding his breath. He didn't hold anything. He put his hand on the back of a guy for a second. If they would have called an illegal block in the back, I would have said, come on, that's so chintzy. He barely touched his back. But they didn't call it illegal block in the back. They called holding. They must have meant illegal block in the back. And he just touched a guy in the back. He didn't send him flying. He certainly did not hold anything. And that flag came crossbow range as that play had already broken. There were questions on the Underground Bunker, this set of questions that I've already asked, or that I've already addressed. A couple of days ago, I asked for questions, and some people posted some questions, and I didn't go back to those. There was one question there that caught my mind, and I can't remember who posted it, but he said, when's the time that you've most thought that the fix was in as far as officiating goes? And I've never really thought that, but I tell you what, there's some coaches off the record that don't trust some officials, period, in both sports. Maybe not fix in terms of gambling or anything, but just, I tell you what. I was talking about, I can't find it, Sally Pont's book, Sally Pont. John Pont's daughter had a book about the Miami of Ohio cradle of coaches. There's some really interesting things in there about the late 70s, early 70s in Southern independent officials and how crooked they were. There's no more Southern independents. But someone asked me, what's the most egregious, most time I've thought that the fix was in, besides the Michigan State-Hawaii game? And John L. predicted that before that game came up. He was like, he predicted it. And then it happened, that it was going to be home cooking like you've never seen, for whatever reason. Anyway, the worst I ever saw was back in about early 90s. The Miami Hurricanes had a long home winning streak, and they were playing Arizona when Arizona had the Desert Swarm team. Smealand was part of that. And Arizona was tough. And they were in that game. They were up 10-7 and driving. And I swear, every time Arizona picked up a first down, they called holding. And it's a tight defensive game anyway. I mean, it was a tight defensive game. And it was just hold. It was a night game down to the Orange Bowl. Barely televised. And I am convinced that those officials were trying to help Miami win, and they won. Something like 10-7, 13-10, something like that. That was crooked, and those were Southern Independent officials. I talked about that in the VCast last week when Schembechler beat the hell out of South Carolina back in like 83 or 82. He said he's glad that they won that game so he could say that he's never, ever playing a game again with Southern Independent officials. That was back then. Are Pacific officials the new Southern Independent officials? I don't know. But the Pac-12 is beleaguered, and they need some wins. Just suspicious, that's all I'm going to say. One of the worst, when Syracuse played Tennessee in 1997, the year Tennessee won the national title with Peerless Price and T. Martin and those guys. Syracuse was good with Donovan McNabb, and I think McNabb might have been a sophomore then. I don't know, but Syracuse was good playing at home. Syracuse had them beat. It was T. Martin. 4th down in ball game, Syracuse is leading, like 4th and 12. Tennessee in the Carrier Dome throws, incomplete. Game over. Syracuse celebrating. Flag. Pass interference on the Yankees. 1st and 10. University of Tennessee. It's in the Carrier Dome. SEC officials. The man who threw that flag is from a place called Lookout Mountain, Tennessee. Look it up. That was rigged. Not on purpose, for betting purposes. I didn't trust those officials. Hey, all of you that are officials out there, you're going to be mad at me because I'm raising these points because it's not fair to those of you that are doing your best at the high school level or the GLIAC. Those people, God bless you. I coach, and I never second guess officials. I'm always like, hey man, you're doing your best, we're doing our best. I'm going to make mistakes, you're going to make mistakes, we're going to make mistakes. Hey, I tell my players, bad hop, just play it like a bad call is like a bad hop, just play it. Even if you think someone is screwing you over, which I've never thought as a coach. And we're coaching 14, we're coaching varsity players now, 14 to 17. Hey, God bless those officials. I'm talking about at this level where there's so much corruption anyway. Do funny things happen? Do some of these people get into officiating because they love sports? Yes. And if you love sports, are there also some teams that you love? Umpire, or one of those guys, who's the guy on our message board that lives out there and knows that one or two of those officials that were in the game last weekend, one of them lives in Scottsdale, Arizona, and officiates Arizona State spring practices. Michigan State has officials that come to their practices too, because sometimes they have officials come in for practice. Do those officials then officiate Michigan State games? I don't know. But I can't remember the last time Michigan State got like real home cooking on a call. The Eddie Brown thing back in 1990, but was that home cooking or just an official blowing a call? All right, let me go through some more of these questions. Barnaby123 from Parts Unknown back in the underground bunker says it seems like Coach Pat Fitzgerald has coached Antonio's number the last couple of years. Can Michigan State win this year after getting out-coached by Coach Edwards this year? The answer, yes, they can win. Question number 5. I've got it listed as number 5. Uper from Traverse City. His name's Uper, but he's from Traverse City. Okay. By the way, Uper, nice dog. It's a good dog you got there. Does Northwestern use a 30 front? No, they're down 4. They do a little like a sword technique sometimes, though. That's what Roshar used to call it. I don't know if that's what everybody calls it. It's the only person I've ever heard call it that. Question from MSQ13 for Parts Unknown. Is the Rob Deere rule in effect for Connor Hayward? Can we boo comfortably? Can we comfortably boo? No, the Rob Deere rule is not in effect for Connor Hayward. He's trying. Rob Deere was not trying. Question from Sparty1981. Thanks for the reference to a previous podcast, though. I appreciate that. You'll do well on the quiz. Sparty1981 for Parts Unknown. Julian Barnett, are we and should we see more of him in the field? Yes, I think you will. D'Antonio said that at the press conference today. He will be playing a little bit more. So will Trey Mosley. Barnett with a real nice play in that game. 13 minutes to go. Gave Michigan State a lift. 2nd and 8 from their 32-yard line. Double stack formation. No, I'm sorry. Gained 32 yards. Double stack formation, which Michigan State's used a little bit and had some success with it, except for the Matt Dotson dubious pass interference. Stack formation, slant, caught it at 10 yards, made one guy miss, took it to the 39-yard line. Good play by Julian Barnett, gave him a lift. But yeah, Trey Mosley also. I don't know where Cam Chambers and Larice Nelson are. 90 Spartan asks, Salem's offense is gaining yards but not scoring points. Do you think it's schematic or execution related? We just went through that. Shouldn't have even repeated that one, but good question, but we went into that. A guy from Stevensville, Michigan, named Victory for MSU asks, is the Spartan helmet shuffle more difficult this year? Yes, it is. It's more difficult this year. His actual question, do you think the new freshman long snapper had a role in the missed field goals? At least the first one. I don't think so. One of them, that snap was a little tight inside, maybe. Thrown up on the re-kick before halftime, maybe. It wasn't perfect, maybe. From New York City, Sparty on 6686 says, why is Trestle team having so many mistakes, penalties, stupid turnovers this year when coached by a no-nonsense coach? And you're right. Why? That's what he's trying to figure out right now. And he's going to come down on them hard and tell them to blank out all the critics like myself and everybody else, not listen to that crap, focus on what they're doing, support each other. And he came down on them hard on them after the first game, got results in the second week. But a coach can't really come down hard every single week. They'll start tuning him out, and the message gets lost in the fog a little bit. So why is it happening? I don't know. It's been one of his staples over the years to have teams that are really tightly put together. And I don't want to say totally mistake-free, because nobody's mistake-free, but largely mistake-free. That's been their MO. They don't have it this year. Why? Great question. I wonder about leadership. We know they've got pretty good leadership with Bocce and Raekwon Williams and Mike Panashuk and Tyreek Thompson and Brian Lewerke. But I wonder about leadership at offensive line. I wonder about leadership at receiver. You're seeing some sloppy routes on receivers still. We talked about all the problems at receivers. Back when they went to the Rose Bowl, D'Antonio talked about how they have great leadership, including, as he called it, remember this, when he said, we've got a bell cow at every position group. In other words, they had a leader at running back room, they had a leader at wide receiver room, they had a leader in offensive line, and he thought that was important. Sounds right to me. So if Cody White's making a mistake like that, who's coming down on him? It's got to be someone other than a coach, if you listen to the Tom Izzo theory. Offensive line, are those guys kicking each other in the rear enough? There's no Jack Allen up there. Does that cause loose screws? I think so. Now, maybe some leaders will rise from this. I don't know. But it's a question I have. I don't know the answer specifically. Real quick through the rest of the chat questions here. JJ Huddle says this seems to be a 4-loss team. Probably right, looking at it right now. 8-4, would I take 8-4 now if I were Michigan State? Maybe. Gosh, JJ Huddle is just, can Butler hold up? I don't know. JJ Huddle's just monopolizing the questions here. Can Butler hold up? He's got to get confident. He might be better if he's not playing every single snap. Shakur Brown needs to come back. That would help. Is Kalen Gervin ready? Not sure. Eric M. from Atlanta, Georgia. When's the last time we beat Northwestern? I feel like it's been a while. How does Northwestern look this year? I've got to look into that later this week myself. Not sure. Well, they lost to Stanford. Quarterback looked terrible. Had a week off. Played UNLV. Trailed in some of that game. They gave up a long run early in that game down the right sideline on just a little outside zone play. They didn't look all that quick, or they didn't look like a Hankwitz defense. But Hankwitz, great coordinator for Northwestern. They talk about a team not matching up with somebody. I think Michigan State coaches, and I love Michigan State's coaches, I think they're really good. I don't think they match up well with Northwestern's coaches. I think Northwestern, with what they do with their RPOs and their version of spread, being able to run it with their version of spread, has matched up well over the years against Michigan State's quarter zone. Now, Michigan State's quarter zone is different than it's been in the past, and Michigan State played more man-to-man against Northwestern in recent years, but then Northwestern started killing them with these crossing routes. When does Michigan State play Northwestern again? If it's not for a lot of years, I will have one other thing about Northwestern that I can reveal maybe next week. And I know you guys hate it when I say, hey, remind me to tell you about the Vernon Carey thing. And then when you ask me about it, I'm like, oh, I can't remember what it was. Well, I remember what the Vernon Carey thing is, but I can't talk about it yet. It's not that big of a deal, really. But you're already seeing it, the results in place. But if Michigan State does not play Northwestern again for the next 4 years, I'll say one other thing about that. We'll see how they do this weekend. Remind me about the Northwestern thing. Brian V says, does Tim Schrader live in Tempe? I don't know. Good question. Spartan Forever. Jim, absolutely not busting balls, but I was curious about this because I wanted to use it in an argument. 10 out of 11 possessions is pretty standard in most college games. 10 or 11 possessions? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. 10 or 11, I think it's usually... I have to look it up. It's a good point. If both teams are running true up-tempo and you get turnovers or more touchdowns, you'll see 14 possessions usually. Let's see. Bill Mahoney, I found this saying since 2007. It's a 13.3 average per game. Okay. I found this saying since 2007. Since 2007. Well, 2008 is when the hurry-up came in. I would venture to guess that since 2012, I'll bet it's up to 14 a game. Just guessing. Doors fan, I think there was plenty. I think there was a penalty on that Dotson drop. Okay, fair. Lewerke said that initially too, and then today I asked him about it, and he kind of backed off of that statement a little bit. But it looked to me like Dotson was very excessive, which you can do to get off press coverage. He's excessive at the beginning and then just ran and continued to be latched onto him. I don't know. It wouldn't have shocked me if they didn't call it. I don't know. Huge impact on the game. It's one thing I like about baseball, man. When the ball is over the fence, it's over the damn fence. You don't have to look for any penalty flags. 90% of the plays in baseball, you don't need an official. Fly out to right field, he caught it, everybody can see that. Ground ball to short, throw it to first, he's out by 5 steps, everybody can see that. Balls and strikes gets a little chancy sometimes. But if you're out on a called third strike and it's close, that's on you. I mean, infrequently will you see a called third strike when it's way out of the strike zone. Now, maybe early in a count has an impact. Balls and strikes can get a little haywire, maybe. And they might rectify that with a standard laser strike zone in the future. But anyway, I just think football and basketball, so much of it is just so random based on judges. But they're exciting sports. Let's see. Spartans Forever. Good find, Bill. I just looked at 4 or 5 box scores from this weekend's game. 10 seemed low to me, but to my surprise, I found a lot of 10s and 11s, close games and blowouts both. All right. Rick Nash. Exactly. The mistakes were elementary. Instead of rushing the last field goal, they could have simply spiked the ball a second time. That's true, and I wrote about that in the .comp article after the game. They could have spiked it a second time, but they would have needed to decided that before they ran that field goal unit on, because they initially gave Lewerke a signal, then D'Antoni was like, nope, field goal. At that instant, there's a lot going through his mind, I'm sure, but at that instant, if he'd have said, nope, spike it again. And that's the type of outside-of-box thing that D'Antoni has been over the years, and I've never seen a team spike a ball twice, but that was the occasion to do it. I didn't think about it at that instant. At that instant, I'm like, okay, they're rushing a field goal unit on, which they do practice. And they got that executed and made it, except they had an extra guy on the field. Lily Flower definitely should have spiked it again and had plenty of time to kick the field goal and no 12th man. You're right, Lily Flower. But go read my article, SpartanMag.com, called .comp, and we talk about that. David Nagy tell me it's working. Elijah Collins looks good, says Lily Flower. Why call 2 timeouts and end up dropping 8 with no spy for a mobile quarterback? That's what they came up with. My goodness. You're right. 2 timeouts. We went over that in that article too. I think one of the timeouts, Arizona State came out with fib formation into the boundary, 3 to the short side. And I don't think they'd shown that the whole game. I think Michigan State's defense wasn't really planning on that, and they called timeout. I could see that one. I can't remember if that was after the first one or the second one. It might have been the second one, the second timeout. So we talked about this on the VCast, talked about it in the .comp. Basically, D'Antonio said what they ended up accomplishing, Michigan State did, is you come out with your formation to run your play, call timeout. Now they come out with a different formation, call timeout. Now they come out with a different formation, so you're making them go to their third play, possibly. The one time they were fib and they called timeout, maybe one of those guys would have motioned out, because when they came back out of the last timeout, there were 3 over there and he motioned. Maybe they would have done that both times. I don't know. Maybe they stayed with the same play. I don't know. But D'Antonio said they were talking about, do we want to blitz the guy? Do we want to do a zone pressure? Do we want to play coverage? What are the most important dangers? It was the quarterback keeper and the screen game and protecting the seams. So they wanted to talk about it and get everything covered. And they came out and had none of it covered. You're right. For one play, probably the biggest defensive failure I can remember in the D'Antonio era in terms of having a chance to be so premeditated on that thing. Because as it turned out, the scramble was open, but so was the dump off. If he dumped it off to Eno Benjamin on the screen, nobody would have had that either. Not that, well, it's got to be a screen with screen blocking. They were not going to do screen blocking. I mean, if they had done screen blocking, then the linebackers might have read it and they might have stopped it. They were in zone and that would have stopped the screen. The running back stayed in the pass protect. But after the game, we went over this earlier. After the game, D'Antonio mentioned that there was a spy, but looking at it, I'm not sure there was a spy. I think I don't see who could have or would have been the spy. We've already been over this. Go back and watch it again, we talked about it. I don't want to repeat it here. But why they called 2 timeouts, that's why. For mobile quarterback, you're right. I mean, they wanted to keep an eye on him. Now, earlier in the game, there was a 3rd and 8 when they did spy. Hold on a second. Let me find this one. They did do a spy, but it was man-to-man. Let's see. Oh, I don't have it on here. Hold on a second. It was the one where Raekwon Williams sacked along with Antoine Simmons. Simmons was in, I can't find it real quickly, but anyway, I can't remember when it was in the game. I'll tell you when it was. It was Arizona State's first drive of the second half. Michigan State played very, very little man-to-man in this game. They didn't play any man-to-man in the first quarter. They played man-to-man on the first play of the second quarter just to change things up. And then they played man-to-man on the first 3rd down of the second half. They didn't play man-to-man because Arizona State had 2 basic dangerous things about them. 3. One is the quarterback keeper. The other one is that tunnel screen to number 2. And we talked about that in the pre-snap read. One of them got loose for like 75 yards in the first game and for 40 yards in the second game. First game, second game. They did it like twice. They also did it last year before Michigan State played them. They got one loose for a long gain. Might have gotten one against Michigan State too. Those tunnel screens are more effective against man-to-man because you got people chasing, ringing around the rosies. If you zone it, it's not as effective. So they wanted to keep a bottle up. They wanted to bottle up the tunnel zone, the tunnel screen, and also the running back screen to Eno Benjamin. Benjamin had a little circle route, 74 yards, touchdown the week before. So those were the dangerous things. They wanted to contain the tunnel screen and the running back and the quarterback scramble with zone defense that keeps everybody facing the backfield. You might give up some underneath passes here and there. They were okay with that. Make them drive. Don't give up the big one. And hold them to 3 points, which was the truth for 59 minutes. So that's why they didn't play. They played less man-to-man today, or in this game, than any time all year or last year or probably the year before. They've never been a big man-to-man team except at the end of games. But this game, in recent years, they played more man-to-man. And this one, less man-to-man. But first 3rd down in the second half, Michigan State came out and played man-to-man with the spy. And Antoine Simmons was the spy on that quarterback. They rushed 4 with 5, kind of doing a green dog, cross-key blitz. He was like spying. And then if he started to scramble, he'd come in as a pass rusher. Man-to-man behind it. So that's smart by Michigan State. They're playing zone the whole game. They go in at halftime. Arizona State talks about it. And they're saying, hey, they're only playing zone. So this is what we're going to do. 3rd down or whatever. We're going to look for this. So the first time they had a 3rd down passing situation, Michigan State changes up, goes man-to-man, just to give the freshman quarterback something new to think about. But then they went back the rest of the game, but at least he had something else to think about. But they did play spy on that play. It was man-to-man with a spy. And he tried to get out. And it was like what they did with Denard Robinson, the Pat Narduzzi theory. It's a running quarterback. Don't chase him into a play. Put a wall around him. 4-man wall or a 5-man wall with the spy. And he couldn't get out. Raekwon Williams, Antoine Jamison combined with a sack on that play. So they did do spy on that one. So when they're calling timeout, I'm sure they've considered doing that. And they considered blitzing. So they rushed 3 and dropped everybody 2 deep. And they ended up doing none of it. And it was, the defensive coaches have been so good, and these defensive players have been so good. I mean, if this had happened with Chris Smeeland days, it'd just be another reason to man, these guys just can't get it done. But it's so odd and bizarre for that group to have 2 timeouts and really, and screw it up. They did. They know it. All right. Let's see. Lynn Tirico, yes, I am broadcasting to you. It's good to have you, Lynn. Rick Nash, exactly. After the game, Bocce even said the quarterback was not his responsibility. How is it the defense play? How is that the defensive play call after 2 timeouts? Go and read the article. And we already talked about it earlier in the podcast. I think Simmons erred. I think Bocce dropped too deep. And I think Butler sank too deep. All of them. I don't think there was one particular spy, which is what we were led to believe after the game. I thought maybe Dowell. I'm not so sure. It's really hard. There's like it's so cloudy that I don't know. It's tough. But Simmons carried it too deep. Bocce, it wasn't his assignment to spy, but I think he dropped too deep. Like I said earlier, the play before he made a real good pass breakup on 3rd down. Maybe he was in pass defensive mode, dropping deeper. D'Antonio said some guys drop too deep, and then this time in interviews today, Bocce said that we all messed up, and I think he's part of that too. And he's a stand-up guy and an excellent player, but gosh, that was an expensive one. But hey, I commend him. He's a good player. Had some good seasons at Michigan State. I sure as hell don't know what it's like to play football in front of 75,000 people and 1 million people on TV and hit and hit and hit and hit for 3 hours and for 4 years. I'm not going to sit here and, I mean, like I always say when I criticize a player, I'm like, hey, Joe Bocce is already better at that than I'll ever be at anything. So I'm uncomfortable criticizing him or any of these guys. I'm just analyzing what happened. But he's a keeper, no question about it. All right, Rick Nash, Lynn Tirico, didn't you mention that Dobbs wasn't very big right now? Yeah, I think he's about 6'3". That's not great size for a left tackle, but he could make up for it with athleticism. The left tackle for Tulsa was 6'3", but moved real well. Not ideal, but we will see. Brian V. Julian Barnett, is he going to get more snaps? We already talked about that. You have to rewind and check it out. Let's see. Didn't you mention? All right, Brian V. Julian Barnett. Spartan Forever. Comp's sense of humor is way underrated. Actually, it's overrated. Tepin. Hands to the face was understandable, but in reality, D lineman's elbow was on the O lineman's chest. Just a bad break. I'll take your word for it on that. Good analysis. Spartan Forever. See Ruby Falls. Don't know what that means. Tyler Miller. What's the status on Ohanba? Is he going to make it into the 2 deep rotation or still developing? Still developing. He's behind schedule. Had to lose some weight. I don't know if he had an injury or not, but good kid from Georgia, but behind schedule. If you're behind schedule in year 2, year 3, the chances of becoming a guy at some point decrease. Sometimes guys come out of it, but usually they know by year 3, and this is year 3 for him, right? Hard to say. It's not looking good. I hope he proves me wrong. Lily Flower. Why Connor Hayward over Elijah Collins on 4th and 1? Great question. We went over that earlier, and they were wrong with that one. Connor Hayward, good kid, but Collins is the guy with the vision, the cutting ability, and in terms of blocking, I made the mistake again. In terms of breaking tackles, I'd say he's at least Connor Hayward's equal. So I'm not sure what you gain with Hayward on that. And you'll notice I don't think Connor Hayward carried the ball again that game. Second straight time he's kind of been benched. He may have come in as a pass receiver later, but a good kid doing all he can. Rick Nash, you're doing a great job, Jim. How often do you do live chats? Just on Monday nights. But we're doing it Tuesday night this week because there's a lot of reasons. But Monday night this week. Is Kalen Gervin ready? Great question. I don't know if he's ready to be better than Josh Butler right now. But we've seen in past years when you get into October, sometimes those freshmen, and he's not even a true freshman, he's a redshirt freshman, sometimes they throw him to the wolves and they don't sink, they swim. Wouldn't be surprised if he gets a shot someday. But Shaq Brown also in line to get a shot if Butler continues to have shaky moments. Rick Nash, is it me or is Dotson dropping too many balls? He dropped the one on 3rd down, but there was illegal motion on it, but that still is not a good look for him. The other one that he dropped was a little bit behind him. It was a one-handed one, so you can't really drop a one-handed pass. You can fail to catch it, but you can't drop something that you didn't already have. To me, a drop is when you have it in 2 hands. And I got to go on low power mode here. Let's close that. Run out of battery time. To me, a drop is like in your hands and you drop it. A drop is not when it's thrown behind and you fail to catch it. So he had one that he failed to catch. Some people say if it hits your hands, you should catch it. Maybe so. Maybe he should make a great catch on that, but it's not a drop. He did drop the one on third down. Would have been a first down. Great play call by Salem. Good ball by Lewerke. Dropped it, but Cody White was illegal motion anyway. But is he dropping too many passes? You know what? I'm going to change. I'm going to say yes. I think he's dropped maybe 3 this year, including that one. That is too many. He's better than that. I predicted that he would be the breakout player this year. The numbers are up, and he's blocking better too. He didn't block great in the first game, blocked better in the second game, blocked best in this game, including on that touchdown. And Cyber blocked better also. That group is on the upswing, and they needed that. Reggie Stewart, I think he may be better than Josh Butler. You might be right. Spartans Forever, See Ruby Falls is a shout out to your Lookout Mountain, Tennessee reference. Fun tourist trap in Lookout Mountain. Thank you. Rick Nash, what happened to the option that worked so many times on 3rd and short last year? You mean like the speed option? Haven't seen it, have we? I don't know. You might see that in some game coming up at some point. Did it really work that well? I know it worked well on 3rd and short in the Holiday Bowl against Washington State. And then I can't remember as much last year. I'll take your word for it on that. Anyway, gone too long. What does that say? 110 minutes? Sorry about that, but it's an important time it's almost an hour and a half. It's an important time for Michigan State fans. I know you guys want to huddle around and come in here and exchange stories and campfire songs. And tough time. You know, I was at football practice today, and up on a screen, a huge screen, the size of a billboard, it had Michigan State's daily devotional. You hear D'Antonio talking about devotional stuff. And I'm not talking like religion or anything, just they mentioned faith in there a little bit, but they kind of are vague about it. But they're in it. Maybe I'll post it on the board. I took a picture of it. In it, they tell the players, among the things that it said was, ignore the critics, work hard. Just, you know, if you have success, go back to the line and work hard. If you don't have success, go back to the line and work hard. A lot of it amounts to work hard, keep your mouth shut, good things will happen. The old George Perlis thing, although they didn't use that phraseology at all. But in there, 1 or 2 references to block out the critics. So coaches are aware that the critics can and do and are bothering some of the players. And when they mean critics, they don't necessarily mean idiots like myself. There are those like myself that are out there. But also critics come in the form of Twitter, tweets, and Twitterverse, which is a whole new thing last few years. That's why Izzo hates it so much, is these kids are into Twitter and they're hearing all the good things about stuff. Then when they have a bad play, it's all the negative stuff, and it's really hard for them to process that. They're big boys. They're also amateur athletes, and it makes them think that Michigan State fans aren't truly fans because there might be a few of them that are saying bad things. I know that 98% of you are supporting those guys no matter what. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm just telling you that that's out there, and they're affected by that. So if you want to create positive change, you can, I don't know what you can do. You can discourage people that you know that do that, if you know people that do that. But probably you don't know people that do that because people that would do that don't have a life. If they don't have a life, they probably don't know you. So I'm just talking into a microphone of nonsense. But anyway, that's out there. That's a real thing. But anyway, thank you to everybody for asking the questions and contributing and showing up. Go to SpartanMag.com. We have a lot of fun there. A lot of coverage still to come later this week, including the pre-snap read on Friday when we break down Michigan State Northwestern. Planning to get together with Big Movie Ron Armstrong for the Skull Session podcast. And every day, the Underground Bunker message board, the daily narrative of Michigan State sports, the church of what's happening now in Spartan athletics at SpartanMag.com. My name is Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again next Monday night for another Spartan Mag Live chat podcast session. Thanks. Have a great night.